Hello everybody, Idre here, and for anybody new here, I make casual reviews and they are just my opinion, so take everything I say with a massive grain of salt. But today I'm actually not going to be doing a new album review. I'm going to be bringing up a subject I've talked about quite heavily on this channel, admittedly. It's about Depeche Mode. The reason I'm bringing this up again, even though I have a relatively well-performing video on this subject, is because a lot of people seem to take the video the wrong way. And there was a lot of questions being asked in the comments, a lot of countering points, which I like. I mean, I like when there's a lot of participation. I think it is, very crucial. But I want to make this video to talk about why I personally, as a listener, as myself, I'm not speaking for anybody but myself. I'm talking about why I personally still enjoy what Depeche Mode has been up to in their newer phase, which by Depeche Mode standards is like the past 20 years, or to put it even more simply, since Alan Wilder left the band. Now, this is a really controversial subject, and I'm going to get the elephant out of the room right out of the way. They sound very different from when they did when Alan was there. And to a lot of older fans, that is something that turned them off. And I'm just going to say it right out, that's completely fine. If you liked their sound with Alan, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like their sound with Alan. There was a lot of great albums coming out by later. Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, etc. A lot of great albums. I'm not denying that. Some of their best. But, if you don't like their sound after he left, leave it at that. What I mean is that so often, what I find is that every time I bring up the fact that I personally, as a listener, as myself, would rank albums like Spirit and Playing the Angel among the likes of, Songs of Faith and Devotion, a lot of times, a lot of people come at me in the comments, and it's just, I don't get it. I really don't get why people take it to heart so much. I get it. People grow up with stuff. They grew up with what they like, and, they might view that as, insulting their, coming up or whatever, but that's not what I mean. That's not what I'm intending. I'm literally just speaking for myself here. So before the end of the day, I wrote down 5 little points here, major points that of why I still enjoy what Depeche Mode's up to, what their sound is like, and I just wanted to get into this. And keep in mind, this is just my opinion. I'm not forcing my views on anybody else. If you don't like new Depeche Mode, that is fine, and if you can't sit through this video, then click off. But, I just feel like I want to make my point more clear, that it is simply my opinion, but that's a lot of blabbering in the first half. I probably lost all the listeners by now, so let me just get into it. Number 1. I enjoy the diversity in sound from album to album. Now, I have some examples because oftentimes a common criticism I see from older fans that aren't really as into the newer Depeche Mode albums is they say that they don't sound as unique as their older albums. And there are some things valid and invalid about that statement. On one hand, they don't utilize samples as much as they used to. That is something that is in their career a thing of the past. And, well, you could have some problems with that. I think they make up for it in a lot of ways, personally, in my opinion. And over the past 20 years, there's really 4 major sounds I think the band has really changed up with. The first one being with Exciter in 2001, which was a very digital sound. Definitely their most digital sounding album, definitely changed up their sound, and really it's a one-of-a-kind album in my opinion. The diversity among tracks is another thing as well, between the much more acoustic-driven Dream On to, some of the much more melodic but very droning digital-sounding tracks like When the Body Speaks and Free Love. I think Exciter is one of the most experimental periods of Depeche Mode's history as well. I think that goes without saying. They definitely explored and experimented with a lot of sounds they had never previously done before. Overall, I love that album a lot, and I really do like the way they experiment on there, and I thought it was a nice little change of pace. And then we get to the next era of their newer sound, which is from Playing the Angel and Sounds of the Universe. Sort of this analog, sort of renaissance. They brought back some of these more analog, modular synths, and it just sounds much more, you know, I don't want to say a throwback because it doesn't sound like they are just copying their old sound, but, tracks like Suffer Well, for example, have a very analog sound to it. Even a track like Precious, in many ways, has a very analog sound to it. And it just gives those two albums a very different feel that, once again, make it stand out. And then you get Delta Machine in 2013, which is an album I see get a lot of criticism amongst some of these older fans, mainly due to the more rockiness of this album, and a lot of that comes from the fact that they really did bring a lot of blues into their sound, something that they really had experimented with on a few songs in the past, like Personal Jesus and I Feel You, but really went a step further on Delta Machine. And the end result was an album that I think came across really good. I mean, some of the best tracks on there are some of the most guitar-driven bluesy tracks, like Goodbye, for example. So I really did enjoy that sort of bluesy little adventure they went on. And then on Spirit, their most recent one, which is one that I love a lot, I think it is one of their best albums, and I get a lot of criticism for that. It sort of sees a bit, in one sense, a return to those analog, more, modular sounds and older synths, but it's a bit more adventurous. It's tracks like Scum, tracks like You Move, definitely see a lot of experimentation amongst the synth sounds, amongst the grooves as well. And overall, this proves that over the past few albums, they've just been changing up their sound, and while some of the older fans might cite that as a negative, I, as just myself, enjoy that. I enjoy hearing a band change up their sound all the time. I enjoy hearing them explore new stuff, even if I'm not crazy about every single thing they do. So, I think that it is a good thing that Depeche Mode is doing this, that they change up their sound quite often, because at the end of the day, I just wouldn't want them to be still making music that sounded like Violator or sounded like Songs of Faith and Devotion. Those albums came out nearly 30 years ago, and time has simply progressed, and they are much older now, and I like hearing them move on to different stuff. So now let me get into the second point of why I still enjoy them personally, the live show. Now, this is a really hot topic. Because a lot of the older fans, this is probably the number one criticism. They really just still cannot get into Depeche Mode with a drummer and without Alan Wilder on stage. And, well, once again, I understand your point. It's a completely valid point. You are okay to believe that. I personally think that when Christian Eigner is pounding away at the drums, Peter Gardino is a really solid musician as well, and I think does great work. I have really no complaints about his piano playing, about his synth playing as well. He does all the parts justice. I just think it adds more energy to their show. Now, you might bring up the fact that it might not have all the details that used to be in the backing tracks, and while you're actually right there, I think that Dave just looks more animated than he ever has. You could tell he's just enjoying himself more than he ever has. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of having that added addition of a drummer. And lastly, about their current live show, is I love hearing the old songs live as well as the new songs live. I also love hearing what new arrangements they bring to the table on some of the older tracks to really spice it up and make it more unique. And also, I find it funny because I actually love the way the drums are processed during the live show. There's a lot of trigger-type sounds on there. On a track like World in My Eyes, you have that traditional World in My Eyes sounding snare drum. And it doesn't just sound like some random bloke they brought off the street. This is a well-rehearsed band that has it down to a T, and I think, honestly, still puts on a killer live show that I personally enjoy. I understand the criticisms, I understand how some people might not enjoy it, but I just think it is a little wrong to write it off as bad, because at the end of the day, they are still really tight live, and I think they are still one of the best bands to see live. In my opinion. Obviously, once again, just my opinion. Number 3. Third reason I still enjoy a lot of their new material, and love pretty much albums like Spirit, Playing the Angel, etc. I think Martin is still one of the best songwriters out there. I don't think his songwriting has really seen that much of a drop at all, and I actually like the addition of bringing Dave in to write a few tracks on each album too, because I feel like then since Martin's getting older, and I don't think he's as fast working as he used to be, I feel like it makes his songs even stronger as well. Dave's songs are strong. It all comes together, in my opinion, to make some of the most well-written music out there. albums like Spirit, while some people criticize it for being more social and more political, this isn't anything new for Depeche Mode. I mean, go back to Construction Time again. That's a very political, very social sounding album. I mean, after all, Song Like Everything Counts is one of their most, social songs out there. But on Spirit, and I feel like it's such a well-focused album, and the concept is there. And it's written to a T, in my opinion. And I think some of their greatest songs have come out, some of their best lyrics on a track like Precious from 2005, one of their best singles without a doubt. And I just think overall, Martin still he still continues to impress me. I really have nothing else to add there. Number 4 of why I still enjoy them. Not only are their singles, I think, still good, I think there is a lot to be found deep within the album in the deep cuts. A few that I've listed that I like quite a bit are The Worst Crime, Broken, When the Body Speaks, Lillian, In Sympathy. All great tracks, among their best in my opinion. I think that a track like The Worst Crime is some of their darkest and just most depressing, in a good way, songs they've ever written. Tracks like Broken features Dave just having some of his best vocal performances as well, and the same can be said about When the Body Speaks. Overall, I think that within each album there are still so many gems that are just waiting to be discovered. And, well, once again, they don't sound like the old Depeche Mode. I still think these songs are great in their own right. And also, I think they still put out some decent B-sides, some decent remixes as well. Tracks like Oh Well are some of the most unique songs I've really heard them ever do, so I have to give them props there. And the 5th and final point I want to make before I close off this video is that I personally love the fact that they don't sound like the old Depeche Mode. They are not trying to be something they are not. They are being true to themselves. If they were not being true to themselves, they would be making Violator 2. They would be making songs of faith and devotion 2. And quite frankly, I'm glad that they've moved on from that sound. As much as I love those albums, and Violator is a near perfect album, I'm just glad that they keep on exploring, they keep on finding new ground, and to me, they keep on doing a good job at it. Like I said, albums like Exciter are some of the most sonically interesting in their catalog. Albums like Delta Machine feature that good blend of that traditional Depeche Mode sound, but with more blues, and to me, it comes together with one of their most soulful albums. And once again, an album like Spirit, and Playing the Angel are some of their most focused albums. At the end of the day, I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to make this video to make my point more clear as to why I personally still like what Depeche Mode is up to. I'm not forcing this on anybody else. I'm not saying you're wrong by not liking whatever Depeche Mode is up to now, or not liking their live show, or whatever. I'm just saying I still think they sound great live. I still think they sound great on the albums, and that is just my opinion, and these are just some 5 points I wanted to get across because I feel like I didn't really do it justice in my original video talking about how they are still good after Alan left. I hope that cleared it up for a little bit for some of you that seem to have a lot of questions. Hope we can all find some middle ground to agree on, because I think everybody has the right to their own opinion, and I think that they are still good. That is it for now. Adios, and expect more reviews soon.